Hello my book people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ragan. Today I am finally sharing with you my October reading wrap up. I know it's a little bit late in the month of November, but there's no time like the present, so let's get started because in October, although it was a wild ride of a month, I did manage to read 10 books, and that experience was a roller coaster in itself. A few DNFs, a few 5 stars, a few mid-range books, and then one taboo romance, which I've never read before until October. So let's chat about it. Oh, do you want to see though first my Sword in the Stone mug? I mean, isn't she precious? I love her. I'm going to do something that I haven't done before in my wrap up, and that's that I'm going to go in the order of which I read them. Usually I just talk about books that I just want to talk about in the moment, and this time I'm gonna go and take you on the journey of the ups and downs of my reading experience for October together. So let's get started. But first, should we address the fact that there are pumpkins and tinsel and Christmas lights up in my house? It's a transition period, okay? I did take down the ghosts, so I don't have 3 holidays up, just 2, but that's fine. Right, so let's start with book 1. The first book that I finished is Violet Made of Thorns by Gina Chen. This was part of my witchy reading vlog, which I've not put up yet because my phone was stolen and that footage, like I had to go find it in my iCloud. It's coming out, I promise. It's coming out this week. I'm really sorry about that, but this is a fantastic witchy YA debut novel by Gina Chen. I think this is her first book. And yeah, it is a first book. It was dark, it's enchanting, it has morally gray characters. It was just so lush, romantic. I love the world that she created. If you like Stephanie Garber's work, then I suggest picking this one up because it kind of has that whimsical, magical feel to it. And it was way more structured like a classic fairy tale than I expected, and I really liked that. So I gave this book 5 stars. The next book that I picked up is one that I've been meaning to read for a while. I've had it since it came out, and that would be Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This was an unexpected joy for me. This was haunting, it was beautiful, it was tragic. It's a little bit sad, but not in the sense of like, it didn't like make me sad, it just made me feel kind of, it made me feel for the characters, if that makes sense. It's not a romance, which is not normally what I pick up, but I really enjoyed this. If you want a gothic mystery that's short, you can read this literally in 2 sittings, which is what I did, especially if you have the physical copy as opposed to the ebook. There are lots of, or not ebook, the audiobook. There are a lot of journal entries and photos, and that really added to the reading experience. So I gave this book 5 stars, really enjoyed it. The next book I picked up was also part of my witchy reading vlog that's coming out, and that would be Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I've talked about this recently in a book haul I just put up. This was also an unexpected joy. I really loved it. Again, it's gothic, it does have a romance, it has death personified as a character, there's a lot of mystery to it. It also has a Regency and Victorian kind of fantasy setting. I really loved this book, and I cannot wait for its sequel, Foxglove, that's coming out. I enjoyed the pacing, I enjoyed the writing style, I enjoyed the world building. So we started off the month really strong with 3 5-star books. And then the next one. Okay, this next book, unfortunately, is a DNF, and it's one that I read throughout the entirety of the month. In fact, I really gave it my all. Not only do I have the physical copy of the book, but I used an Audible credit. I signed up for Audible, used an Audible credit to listen to the book to try to finish it and push myself through. And that would be The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. This is a Fairy Loot edition that I've hauled recently. It's very pretty. It's a contemporary romance within a fantasy world. That's the best way I can describe it. Unfortunately, I stopped around page 150 before Heart and Mercy meet because they're pen pals in this, but I just don't think that this world was fleshed out enough. I was confused by a lot of things in the writing. In fact, I have a whole notes page, so I'm gonna just like list some things off. Okay, 1, we are thrown into this fantasy world without a map. It's like our world, like they're drinking Merlot and they have conversations about when to use who or whom in a grammatical sense when they're speaking, which was annoying because it took up a whole page, and I'm like, okay, I took vocabulary and grammar when I was 9, like I understand. But at the same time, they're in this new world that has old gods, and there's all this history that's intertwined with like today's world, but we don't even get any of that history until 150 some odd pages into the book, because I had just read it. 140. And it goes on for 4 pages where it's just literally word vomit of this history, and I couldn't listen to it. I couldn't read it. It was just info dumpy. And my biggest problem was the actual plot of this, not the fact that these were two kind of like grumpy people that didn't get along and didn't know that they were writing to each other and then they fall in love. That's not the plot issue that I had. It was that Mercy is an undertaker, so she works at a funeral home and like takes care of bodies that were found in this kind of cowboy-ish swampy land in this fantasy world. But she's not supposed to take it over. It's supposed to be her brother, who went to university to study how to do undertaking and decides that he doesn't want to be an undertaker. And she's like, I can't believe that I wasted my whole life and you're not even gonna come and take it over, even though she loves what she does. Her brother hates it, doesn't want anything involved, and she wants to be there. She's 30 years old and she's given her whole life to her brother so her brother could study to do what she does. And then she's mad that he won't do what she does, but she doesn't want to go anywhere else. And then she's so bitter and angry with her brother that she screams up the stairs to her dad that her sister's pregnant. Her sister's like in her mid to late 30s, married, in a relationship, and just Mercy was just childish and was just like, by the way, my sister's pregnant. Like, okay. I mean, why do you have to be like that? That was just mean. I don't understand what the drama is that you would resort to that kind of behavior that like a 16-year-old would do. And then she's also super embarrassed that she has a pen pal, and people are saying like, oh, that's your boyfriend. And she's like, stop, I don't want anyone to know. I don't want my dad to know. Like, I'm pen paling a boy. You're 30. What? Again, maybe I'm not the right target audience, you guys. Some of you probably really like this book, but unfortunately, it did not work out for me in terms of writing, plot, the fantasy world. There's no map. There was also descriptions of fantasy creatures that, actually, I should rephrase that. There are fantasy creatures in this book that weren't described. I'm assuming one creature is like a water horse, but Megan Bannon didn't give us the description of what these water horses looked like, so I was just kind of like making something up in my head. It just didn't work for me, so I DNF'd that. I did not rate it on Goodreads, but that's that. So, next one. Then I picked up Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I just put out a non-spoiler review for these books. I'll link it up above and down below. 5 stars all the way through. I really enjoyed my reread of Heir of Fire. I enjoyed this so much more than the first time I read it. The first time I read it, I thought it was info dumping and not a lot happened. And the second time I read this, like 4 or 5 years later, I really enjoyed it. I thought Sarah J. Maas did a really good job of expanding the world, of character development, of showing us the longing and building into relationships that we're going to see further down the road in the series. I thought it was really well written. Sarah J. Maas does a great job of tying things together in all of her books, so the plot just like keeps expanding while also coming together and making sense. So if you haven't read Sarah J. Maas, I'm one of the Maas fans, so just pick her up, okay? And then I finished and read Queen of Shadows, and again, the ending of this book just leaves me dying to know what happens next. I can't say much else because it's like the 5th or 6th book in the series. 5th book, I think. Yeah, 5th book. And so good. So I'm continuing on with this series this month in November. Then we have Serpent and Dove by Shelby Marin. Okay, so this book I had read 99 pages of last December, and then I picked it up again for my witchy reading vlog. This was a DNF. I'm sorry, I know this is a super popular series, but at the same time, I did post about my dilemma with this book and the fact that I found our main character, the girl especially, whose name was Lou, I think that was her name, to be so annoying and immature, and just like, she's supposed to be protecting herself because she's a witch in a world where witches are burned at the stake and killed, and she just like goes out of her way to be annoying and obnoxious and draw attention to herself, and I just didn't care for it. I also didn't particularly enjoy all the Catholicism in the book, but maybe that's because I grew up Catholic and I was just like, I just don't want to read this right now, like, I don't know. So I did post on Instagram, as I was saying, and I asked you guys, should I continue on with the series? And I cannot tell you how many people privately DM'd me and commented on that post about how book 1 they liked or they really didn't like. Book 2 was just flat out no one really likes book 2. It has middle book syndrome. And then people said that book 3 either they really loved and it's like worth it to push through 2 books, which I don't really want to do, or they said that it was a big disappointment and they're struggling to get through it. Not really worth my time. I trust you guys, so if I'm already struggling with this book and you're telling me that you're struggling with it as well, I'm gonna set it aside. I'm not saying that this is a total DNF forever, because this should be everything I love. It has a fantasy French setting, love that. It's enemies to lovers, love that. Witch and witch hunter forced into holy matrimony, they have to get married, love that. It's historical fantasy, but isn't working, so yes. But okay, the next book. Okay, we have to talk about. It's getting dark so early. It is 4:38 and there's no sun outside. It looks like it's 8 o'clock at night. Anyway, the next book I finished is Glow by Ragan Kennedy. Again, I put out an entire non-spoiler series review for the first 4 books that are currently out, just 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago. So I'll link that up above and down below. If you are unaware of this series, where have you been? This is a King Midas retelling. It's adult, it's fantasy, it's steamy, it's romantic, it's totally character driven. I really enjoyed this 4th book. It's big, she's thick, she's over 700 pages. She might be 800. Shall we check? No, she's just over 700 pages. There are more character points of view in this book, which did kind of annoy me at first, but that's Ragan Kennedy's writing style, and I actually grew into it, and I actually really enjoyed seeing these other characters' perspectives. One thing that did annoy me is there's a new character's perspective in this book. We only get 2 chapters of his perspective, and I really liked it. I wanted to know more, so I was kind of annoyed that in the 700 pages we only got 2 chapters that were quite short with his point of view, but that just excites me for the next book because I know that there's more coming with these characters. It ends on a big cliffhanger. The world's totally going to expand. If you want to hear my thoughts on this series so far, go check out that video. I gave it 5 stars. It was really good, especially after that DNF with Serpent and Dove. But unfortunately, the next book is one of my biggest disappointments for the whole year, and that would be Music of the Night by Angela J. Ford. I really thought I was going to love this. I've followed Angela J. Ford for over 2 years on Instagram now. She's an indie fantasy steamy romance author. I have 2 of her books. This is my first book that I read, and it should be everything that I like. It's a gothic, steamy, fae fantasy story. It has a Phantom of the Opera retelling aspect to it. I have it signed. It says enjoy the music and magic, and it has her signature. It's beautiful hardback. It came with art and it came with a bookmark. But you guys, I got to page 128 and this is the most underbaked, underdeveloped story I think I've ever read. And I'm not being dramatic when I say that. So I'm really disappointed by this. It was smut that had no substance and no plot, and I didn't care about the characters at all. I can't tell you what happened in this book. It's supposed to be enemies to lovers, but she goes to take music lessons with this guy in a tower, and literally it's I had a week of music lessons with him, and we didn't see any of their dialogue. We saw nothing. And then 2 pages later, they're hooking up in his bedroom and she's like, he's so dark and mysterious. Why? Why is he so dark and mysterious? Why do you want to save him? Why do I care about you? I don't understand what's happening. We really just needed more. This felt so rushed, and it's such a disappointment because on paper, all of her books should be something that I'm really drawn to. So unfortunately, this was a DNF. I might finish it in an hour just to say that I finished it on Goodreads to go towards my Goodreads goal, but is it worth my time right now? I'm not so sure that it is. So that's really sad. But the last book I have to talk about, we need a couple minutes for. Oh my god, I almost forgot. I have 2 books to talk about, actually. The first book is an audiobook that I listened to right before Music of the Night, and that would be Geekerella. I just had to look up who the author was. Ashley Poston. This is part of Once Upon a Con. It's this series that Ashley Poston wrote a few years ago, and it's about going to Comic-Cons and conventions for nerds and falling in love. And I really enjoyed this. I listened to this on Audible. It has a Cinderella retelling to it, and it was so cute. There's a little sausage dog. She works with a magic pumpkin, which is this vegan food truck that goes around. This was so cute. I highly recommend this if you like fantasy retellings. I don't know if I'll continue on with the series just because it follows different characters, but this was sweet and so nerdy, and I could just like kind of embody that nerd life. Like if you love Star Wars or Sarah J Maas or Marvel or Game of Thrones, then you like know that the fan culture is so strong. And I just thought this was so well done. So it embodies that fan culture, and it's about this girl who lives with her evil stepmother and evil stepsisters, and she ends up texting this guy who happens to be playing the character from her favorite show. It's like been rebooted basically, and she doesn't like him, but they don't know that they're the ones messaging each other. So it's really cute. It has a good happily ever after ending, and I really recommend it. So I did give this one like 3.5, 4 stars. Yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars. So I enjoyed it. It was worth my time. Okay, the last book I read was, well, I listened to this. It's my first taboo romance. I've never read a taboo romance before. This is the first one. And it is Priest by Sierra Simone. Wow, I really liked this. This is about a very sexy, hot priest who falls in love with someone who comes to his church for confession. And it was like a little bit uncanny listening to this book because I related to the characters a lot in like a setting sort of way. It's in the Midwest. I'm from the Midwest. The girl went to the University of Kansas for a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Dance. I was accepted to the University of Kansas for a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Dance, and I nearly went. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I understood everything that the author was talking about to the point where it's like not funny. Like I completely understood everything she was talking about. The character's name in this book, the priest who's young and hot, his name has the same name as the priest that I grew up with and who married my husband and I. So it was just kind of like, wow, there's a lot in here that I can understand what's happening. It was just kind of funny, but this was so steamy. It was so good, and it was romantic. Like, it was actually romantic, and I could feel the priest's confliction with his love for his faith, but like his love for this woman. So it wasn't just like dark and creepy. It wasn't creepy at all. It was romantic and kind of sad that they were in this situation. But the steamy scenes, they're really steamy, but they're so cheesy. Like, y'all, like him doing like the Apostles' Creed after they did it on the altar. Please, I was cackling. Oh my god. The use of holy water and like holy oil. I don't know. I'll never go to my parents' church and think the same ever again. It's so funny, but such a good read. If you want a steamy, smutty, taboo romance that like nothing dark or weird happens, it's just like these two people should not technically be together because priests aren't allowed to marry, then give this one a try. I think it was a good introduction into taboo romance for me because I'm not into like age gap romances. I definitely don't think I would enjoy a teacher-student romance or anything kind of like that, or you know, that there's a whole genre out there, and there are booktubers and book talkers who only talk about taboo romance. So I can link someone who I really like down below, which is Mary. She's like kind of like the queen of taboo romance. So I'll link her channel down below if you want to check out someone who reads that all the time. But I'm happy that I gave this one a go. I would definitely listen to another book in the series because the man who narrates the priest's voice was so steamy. His voice is so attractive. I was doing the dishes and like, oh my god, like who's talking in my ear right now? But I did give this one 5 stars because I think I really enjoyed it. It was really good, and I understood everything that happened. Although I will say the fact that the main character, the fact that she went and got a BFA in dance and did it in 3 years instead of 4, I was like, no, you didn't. There's no way. How do you have the time? But anyway, those are the 10, is it 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 books? Well, I guess I didn't technically read 11 because I DNF'd 3, but I did try 11 books in October. So thank you so much for Whoops. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and let me know what you read in October. What was the best thing you read? What was the worst thing you read? Have you read a taboo romance before? What did you think of Serpent and Dove if you read it, and Undertaking of Heart and Mercy? Because honestly, big disappointments, but you never know. I could give them a try again in the future, but for right now, they are off the table. But I am off to edit this video, clean the house, make dinner, so I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!